This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Shalom Aleichem. So this week the Orchos Chaim is going to be 5:35, and then next week we go back to 5 o'clock until the Minyanim switch back. Okay, we're up to Ois Samach Gimel in the Orchos Chaim of the Rosh. Al Tidaber Bitzavar Asak. Do not speak in the neck strongly. What does this mean? Bitzavar Asak. So the source of this expression, Al Tidaber Bitzavar Asak, comes from Tehillim, Parak Ayin Hey Pasuk Vav, Al Tarimu Lamarim Karnechem. Don't raise up your horns to the heaven. Tidabru Bitzavar Asak. Speak at the neck strongly. The Metzudah says Asak is the language of Chayzek, meaning don't speak strongly against Hashem. The Targum on those words are Lo Tarimun Lemaroima Ikar Chayin. Do not raise up your honor. Atun di Memalin Betukva V'Gidufin. Don't speak harshly, criticize. In other words, if things happen in life, don't criticize Chas v'Shalom HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Don't speak harshly against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is the Hashgacha. This is how Hashem orchestrated it, and don't speak out against it. Then the Rosh says, V'al ta'iz meitzach. Do not make your forehead brazen. Shaloi lekabel alecha yirah shamayim. Do not make your forehead brazen in an attempt not to accept the yoke of heaven. So here the Rosh is talking about not being brazen, and brazenness is a antithesis to the fear of God. Now we know that Azus is a very terrible midah. We can't really get much worse than Azus. The Mishnah says in Avos, Parakeh, Mishnah Chav Gimel, Az Panim Legehenim. Someone who is brazen will go to the purgatory. And Rav Goldberg cites Rav Shalom Shvadron, who said in the name of the Chavetz Chaim, basically because anybody else will ultimately do tshuva, but a brazen person, there's a sort of a presumption he will not do tshuva. And therefore he has no choice but to go to Gehenna. Everyone else doesn't have to go to Gehenna. They could do tshuva. In Kala Rabasi, Aleph, it says, an Azpanim doesn't do tshuva. And the Gemara in Tainus says someone who is an Azpanim is suspected of every possible sin. You're allowed to call the person a Rasha, because eventually he will sin. And Chazal say he will eventually do an Avera, and you're allowed to hate him. And in the Iyunim of Rabbi Cheskel Sarna, he says that we find that Tanoim and Amaram were suspected themselves for this midah, and they davened therefore that God should spare them. They said, that's what we say every day. From those people who are brazen, and from the midah of brazenness. And therefore the Rosh says, Al ta'iz metzach. Because to the extent that one has this midah, it's a chesaron in yirah shamayim. But the more shame a person has, the more busha a person has, which is the opposite of azas panim, he will increase yirah shamayim. Therefore, in Pirkei Avos it says boishes panim legan eden. Therefore, a person has to be very careful about the midah of azas panim. Now, the question though is that we do find in Chazal that azus is a good midah. For example, in the Gemara in Be'ah, it says the Yisrael are the Azim Sheba Umais, and there are many benefits in the midah of Azus. If the Jewish people did not have the midah of Azus, there's no way we could have survived all the ordeals and all the challenges of the Golus. The only reason we've stuck to Hashem is because of our brazenness. There is Rav Goldberg quotes the Ri Bar Yaakov, Rabbi of Rashi, that some in the Vidoy say, not she'ein anu azei fanim loimar lefanecha, but she'anu azei panim loimar lefanecha. We are brazen, and therefore have mercy on us. We're so brazen that we've kept to you all these years, and therefore have mercy on us. So there is an element of azus that's a good midah. In fact, in the opening of the Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah tells us that the Beis Yosef says not to back off from people who mock you in Avodas Hashem, but one has to have a certain brazenness to be persistent in Avodas Hashem, even if people mock you. However, it is also warned not to train yourself in this midah because it's not a good midah. So that means, like all midahs, it has its time, it has its place. There are elements of azus which are proper. For example, the people who don't have azus, so you could convince them of anything. So today they believe one way, tomorrow they believe the other way. They don't have a backbone and they sway in the wind and they don't have any ideals. They just go with what you tell them. Whoever wins the Super Bowl, that's what fan they are. And next year someone else will win and they'll be a fan of somebody else, but they have no inherent ideals. The midah of azus of Klal Yisrael is it's hard to convince us of something, but once we're convinced of the truth of something, then we'll never shake it, and we'll be loyal to it, and we'll always stand up for it. So that's the midah of azus. But in general, azus is a harmful midah. It's a midah we specifically pray to eradicate, and that Hashem should save us from. And if you look in Pirkei Avos on the Mishnah of Az Panim Legehenom, immediately after that is Yiratzam Milfanecha Hashem Elokeinu V'Elokei Aviseinu Sheyibanu Beis Hamikdash B'Mheira V'Yameinu. And so you let's take a look for a moment. If you look in Pirkei Avos, the end of Parakeh, Yehuda ben Tema, we say as follows. Yehuda ben Tema Omer Hava Az Kanomer V'Kal Kanesha Rotz Katzvi V'Gibar Kari Lasas Utzana Vicha Shabashamayim. So but the very next Mishnah is Az Panim Legehenom. So it's exactly what we said. On the one hand, you need to be Az Kanomer, and you can't back down from people who try to stop you from serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. On the other hand, an Az Panim will go to Gehenom. So we immediately daven that Hashem should build the Beis HaMikdash, and we shouldn't have to exercise the midah of Azus in order to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu because of its danger of Az Panim LeGehenom. Okay, we're going to hold it over here. We'll pick it up tomorrow on Ois Samach Daud. Again, the Zmanim this week are, for the Orchos Chaim and the Rosh will be 5:35, and then next week we go back until for quite a while, until the schedule gets earlier. We're going to go back to 5 o'clock, okay? Thanks everyone for joining. Bracha v'atzlacha. Kol tov. Hi, Yitzi, how you doing?
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.